Welcome to the Fee for Service Dentist Podcast. Today's guest, Dr. Stephen Justesen. Interesting story, fantastic. In spite of the recession, declining economy, he's at a 50% growth from 1.1 to 1.8 to 2.4. So he's skyrocketing, and he's all about culture, knows where he comes from, and work-family balance. Has 10 children. Don't know how he still has his eyelids open in the morning, but God bless him. And it was a great conversation. Hopefully very helpful to all of us. He's a fee-for-service doc, and that road to success was not a straight line, as most of the time it isn't. I think you get a lot out of this. As always, our podcast is brought to you by Kettenbach Dental, a maker of a new product called Prophicel, and it is a major advancement in fluoride varnish treatments. It has no alcohol or resin. Patients will want this new treatment delivered in a mucoadhesive dimethicone gel, which leaves a smooth, silky, lubricious finish. No more grit. Contact Kettenbach today for more details and do the more varnishes that people will appreciate. Call 877-532-2123. If you like the podcast, click like, subscribe. Please share it with your friends. That's how we get more information and more help to everybody out there. If you don't like it, well, please hit me up, sunnyspira@gmail.com or 607-624-2962. Love to have you. Let me know what you want to hear or what want to be better and improve at. And anybody interested in being a guest and share their knowledge and wisdom, we always appreciate new people.
My name is Drew Burns, and I'm a part of a small group of dentists who believe something crazy. We believe that the standard of care is just not good enough. We demand the best of ourselves and the best for our patients. We believe that the best way? No, the only way to practice dentistry is on our own terms. If you ask the dental consultants or the corporate CEOs, they tell you that what we're doing isn't smart, that fee-for-service dentistry is dead, and that the golden age of dentistry is over. Yet, while others focus on profits first, we focus on the patient first. And yet our offices are some of the most profitable in the entire country because we invest in ourselves and we are doing things right. It's our name on the door and it's our reputation on the line. My name is Drew Burns and I am a fee-for-service dentist. This is the Fee-for-Service Dentist Podcast and these are our stories.
Welcome to the Fee-for-Service Dentist Podcast. Dr. Sunny Spira. Today we got a special guest and one of my victims of trolling on the Fee-for-Service Dentist group. I saw someone post a note and I was like, hey, love to have you on the podcast. And I got a very warm response from his wife, actually. That's how it started. It says, oh, you want to speak to my husband? And I was like, sure, let's do this. So let's start, right? Dr. Justesen, okay? Dr. Stephen Justesen has been practicing dentistry since 2013. In 2018, he took the transformative step of purchasing a solo dental practice. His emphasis on team culture and relationship building has been instrumental in the continual growth of his practice. Dr. Justesen is driven by his passion for learning and helping others and is always seeking innovative ways to make excellent oral health more attainable for his patients. Beyond his professional pursuits, Dr. Justesen is a husband and father of 10, and yes, he's here to tell us about it. He finds motivation within the family and inspiring him in both his personal and professional endeavors. So, Steve, welcome to the show. How are you today, man?
I'm good, Sonny. Thanks for having me.
You betcha. He is in beautiful Bozeman or Bosman? How do you pronounce that?
Bozeman.
Bozeman, Montana. And for you Yellowstone fans, it's in that vicinity, but we talked offline. Not really his cup of tea, although I'm a little bit of a fanatic and I'm weaning myself off of the show. So anyway, so let's talk. So tell us a little bit about where you grew up. Give us some of your background. Let the people get to know you. Where are you from?
Absolutely. So I grew up in a small agricultural town in the middle of Washington called Moses Lake. Very, very small town. I think the population now might be 30,000. When I was growing up, it was probably half that.
Okay.
But yeah, small town. Grew up there. Worked for my dad growing up, who did fire and water damage restoration and
Oh,
carpet cleaning. And I thought that that was the industry that I would end up in. And until my brother knocked out his front teeth.
huh.
Yeah, he was playing basketball and tripped over a guy. Another guy landed on his head and he bit the hardwood floor and off they went. And his teeth just kind of like split both ways and they tried resetting them in the ER, and then they said no, go to your dentist. And so took him to the dentist, and as he's like trying to reset the teeth and everything, my dad said, okay boys, this is what you need to do. You need to go get an education, do this so you don't have to work like I have to. And funny enough, the dentist actually said, go do hygiene because they get paid well and they don't have to worry about the business. And so I thought, okay, well, sounds good to me. And that's kind of how I started my avenue with dentistry. And high school, I volunteered my time at a dental office. It was my dentist growing up, and just spent I don't know, I think it was like a year and a half. Each class period, I'd go out there and just volunteer my time and just learn to love it because I got to have these relationships with patients, got to help them like reduce their anxiety before somebody came in. And I worked a lot with the hygienist because that's what I thought I was going to do. It was actually a male hygienist, and I thought, oh, this is kind of cool. I could do this, and started kind of down that path. Went on a mission for my church. I served in Poland. Got to learn the Polish language. Love the people. Love the culture. Um, I then came home. Got married to my high school sweetheart. Um, and right after I got home, actually 3 weeks after I got home, so we hadn't seen each other for 2 years and got married in 3 weeks. And then
Don't
started
wait,
having
man.
kids right
Don't wait.
away.
Got the right one. The time is
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Knew she was the right one. But then I was working with my dad, and one of our friends, it was next to his house, and he's like, Steve, what are you gonna do? And I was like, well, I'm gonna go do some hygiene and become a hygienist. And he's like, well, why don't you become a dentist? I was like, I don't know if I want to deal with the business side of things.
same
I
answer the
sound
guy
like,
said. Hey,
yeah, yeah,
same thing the guy told you.
yeah, exactly. But I also saw like how stressed out my dad could be just owning his business.
Sure.
And so I was like, I don't know if I want that. That seems like a lot of work and a lot of stress. And he said, Steve, it's not as bad as you think, and you'll never regret it. So I was like, okay, went home, prayed about it, talked to my wife and said, hey, I think this is what I want to do. And she's actually been a dental assistant, so she was familiar with
Oh,
the
wow.
environment. And I asked her, I was like, hey, if do you think this is okay? Like I can't do this without your support kind of thing, because it's going to
Sure.
be a long road trying to go be a doctor and everything. And she's like, yeah, I'll support you along the way. And so I was like, okay, let's do this. Let's go that path. And it's interesting because there's not many people in my family that actually went to college. So that was a whole new experience for me to actually jump into like higher education.
Yeah, I was going to
Um,
ask you, like your brother with the tooth problem, did he go into the field?
he was going to do hygiene as well. Um, he did some college. He actually took over my dad's business
Okay. All right.
and has done extremely well. He's a millionaire now, so
Okay.
he ended up selling the business to more of like a corporate
Sure.
practice, but he's done quite well. And sometimes I think, man, did I make the right choice? But no, we have a lot of fun. So he's done very well. He lost one of the teeth and ended up getting an implant.
Okay.
Actually, throughout high school, he had a flipper for
Uh-huh.
the longest time, and finally he got sick, I think, and vomited, and it got flushed down the toilet. So that's when he got.
That pushes it. Okay. All right. So you go to college, you're married. What does that look like financially for you after the 4 years?
After the 4 years, um, well, for undergraduate, we got Pell Grants because we were just as poor as could be. We didn't have anything, so Pell Grants took care of tuition and things like that throughout undergrad. And then, but dental school, I think we came out with 330,000 in debt when it was said and done.
So that's dental school and college?
Yeah, I didn't have much for undergrad because I was able to have Pell Grants because because we were married, it didn't go off my parents or anything like that. Because I was 21 when we got married, and I think 22 when I um, the started going back to school.
Okay, so you
Yeah,
started college a little bit at the age most people are finishing college. You started.
yeah,
Okay. And so now you graduate in college about 26 and you really don't have a lot of debt from the first 4 years because of the grants?
yeah, yeah.
Okay, so
I
grants
mean,
are not like they're like scholarships. They're not like loans.
yeah, so that's they're just paying for things. But living expenses, we worked to cover living expenses. I worked for my dad while I was
Uh-huh.
doing community college, and then once I got my associates transferred over to University of Washington, we became apartment managers,
Okay.
and uh, yeah, that's what helped
Okay.
pay for
All
everything
right, so
else.
so you're a hustler. You got to hustle. Okay. No, not like not like no, I mean like hustle a compliment. Like you got to hustle. You got to work, you got to
Oh,
juggle.
yeah, 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 yeah.
So you
No,
learn how to
there's
juggle 5 or 6 balls early, right?
yeah, we at one point I had three jobs at once and trying to finish things at school.
And
Yeah.
how many kids while you were an undergrad?
Um, I think number we had two kids, and number three came when I started first year of dental school.
Okay. So, I mean, that's literally juggling. That's
Yeah.
all right. So that gives you a real understanding of what you were dealing with on a daily basis. So, comes to dental school, you
Yep.
went to undergrad at University of Washington and you went to University of Washington Dental School. Okay.
Yep.
In dental school, did you have any ideas of going on, or was it you were sticking with general dentistry?
No, actually, so there's two areas I really loved. I love pediatrics and I love pros, but those don't mix together very well.
A little tough.
So I did want to go to pros. I had an advisor that was a prosthodontist, and he knew I think it was the director over at Harvard Pros, and he was trying to put us in connection with each other, and we kept phone calling but never connecting. And finally, my wife was like, I think you've done enough school, and if you end up going to Boston, that's a lot of money. That's a lot more money that we're gonna have to pay out. I'm like, we could probably just, learn some of the things you want to learn through just continued education.
Uh-huh.
And so I was like, okay, let's find a practice. I wanted to buy straight out of
Yeah, I was going to
school.
ask you that next
That was
question.
my dream.
All right. So what did you do? You graduated in
So
2013.
yeah, graduated in 2013, found a practice, and the practice was for sale. But then when I went there, then the owner doctor decided he wasn't going to sell and he was going to hire an associate. Maybe it was a red flag. I don't know. But so I was like, okay, no, that's great. We actually had gone to the same school, and I was like, that's great. I can have this guy as a mentor, but I let him know, I want ownership. So at some point,
Little glitch in the audio. We're back. Go ahead. So
all
at some
right,
point you wanted to buy in. You said that was your intention. You made it very clear that was your intention. He
yeah,
wanted an
I wanted
associate.
ownership.
So where does it
Yeah.
go from there?
So he was like, okay, he was okay with that, and so we started there, and things were going well, and then there just became financial trouble within the practice, and he wasn't able to pay me anymore. So we we cut ties.
So, so did I hear that right? He,
You heard it right.
he said I can't pay you anymore.
Yep.
Oh my goodness. Okay,
Yeah.
now is this in the vicinity of where you were? Like, or did that require a?
No, it was in a different state. I try not to give too many details on that. I don't want to give anybody a bad name or anything. So I
Okay,
just,
but
you know,
you had to relocate your family
yep,
to this spot with the intention of purchasing, and
yep.
you were an associate for how long?
Probably 9 months.
9 months, and then he says, "Okay, now you're either going to be slave labor or I can't pay you." Right?
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, it was interesting because we found out that Jen was expecting our sixth child at the time. So exactly 9 months later, we just had baby number six, and then I'm getting this news. I can tell you that was tough. That was tough. I
So,
broke down at that point. I was like, I don't know what I'm supposed to do and where
yeah,
I'm
what did you
supposed to
do?
go.
Yeah, this is
Um,
real life. What did you do now?
yeah, I called my dad, broke down crying, just like, Dad, I don't know what to do. And he's like, well, we're here to support you in any way we can. And I started reaching out to some of the dentists around the area and community health. And so there was one doctor that does military stuff, training through community health. And so he was going to be gone for like a month doing his training. So like, hey, why don't you come here and do this for a month? So that helped out at least for that month. And then I worked at another practice that was it was in a completely different town, so I had to drive like an hour away, just one way to get there, and not not my vibe. Wasn't what I wanted, and yeah, they had a not a great culture, and so it wasn't very comfortable, and that only lasted maybe a couple months. And because I wouldn't sign a contract with them, they said, "Hey, we found someone, so we're done with you." Just out just one day. It's like, okay. So that's when looking a little more seriously about a place, and decided I need some stability. So I contacted a community health clinic uh, in Washington, over in Northeast Washington, and that's where I ended up for the next 3.5, almost 4 years.
Okay,
Uh,
so just to color in the rest of the picture too. So six children at this point.
yeah.
You said you were $330,000 in debt, if I heard that right.
Yeah.
Right? No, I mean
Yep.
really, right? And you
Yep.
are located you're not at home, you're now in a different state.
Yep.
So now at this point though, after so it's about a year now at this point, about a year in.
Yeah. Yeah. About a year now.
So about a year, you're going back to your home state. Is it anywhere near your family?
It's definitely closer.
Okay.
It was, I don't know if people know where Spokane was, but it
Yeah.
was probably about an hour and a half north of Spokane. It's over
Okay.
in Colville.
So
And
what did they offer you? What was the community clinics offer for you?
they offered, I think I started out, I can't remember what I started out with, 130 a year salary, something like that.
Did they give you any benefits? Like health insurance has to be a big
Yeah,
one.
yeah, yeah. So you got health benefits, and
Mhm.
I told them like, hey, I missed the deadline for any like loan repayment thing. So
Right.
they threw in a little stipend for that, which was very kind and generous of them. Um, and then
Normally,
uh,
it would allow you to defer loans like a GPR does, you mean?
not defer, but help do loan repayment.
Oh, okay. So they help with some payment back. Okay. All right.
Yeah, yeah. It
So you
was, I
did
mean,
that
it
for
was
three and a
more,
half years.
yeah, yeah. I did get I don't know, because I worked there, I did qualify for the loan repayment for like 50,000. So that was nice to at least go to that. But for that amount of time, you kind of would hope it'd be a little bit more. Actually, by the time I was done, they had changed things to where if you did 3 years, you could get 130 taken off. I
Okay.
was like, wow, that's kind
So
of a
you
bummer.
missed that 130. You
I
only got
missed
3 years.
that
Uh,
chance.
uh,
Yeah.
uh. All right. So
Yeah.
now, so what year are we at this point? Three and a half,
Oh man.
4 years.
Let's
So
see,
you're
where are
two
we
about
now?
2017,
Yeah,
2017 and a half,
2017.
2018. All
Yeah,
right.
so
So
I
are
was
you
getting
so you're still carrying a pretty decent amount of debt then, right? You're still carrying.
yeah, yeah. So yeah, we're pretty heavy on the debt, and we're like, hey, maybe we'll stay here, or maybe we'll do something. But community health kind of started burning me out. I
Okay.
was working longer hours, it's usually 10-hour days, and I would sometimes pick up a fifth day, um, and I'd be traveling to different clinics for that. Actually, I helped not start, but regrow one of their clinics that was in a super small town. I think maybe 600 people in the town, working out of a single wide trailer. And we ended up growing it from like a 1 to 2 day practice to 4 days, and we were booked out like 3 months. And it's,
Okay.
it's mostly Medicaid patients that are coming, but yeah, it was fun. It was exciting. I got to be the only person there, so it was enjoyable.
So
But
what kind of skills did you pick up in 3 years?
I got to kind of refine more of my denture skills because we did a lot of dentures. And then I don't know, you didn't get to do much else.
Okay.
You hardly even got to
So
do
you're not really
crown.
doing a lot of pros, which is one of your
No,
primary
no,
interests. Okay. So
yeah,
now you got the bug to own your own practice.
yeah,
What
yeah.
was the trigger other than getting a little burned out and recognizing that? Was there any other triggers that said time to get on your own, son?
Autonomy. I
Economy.
want to treat patients how I want to treat them. I want to offer them the things that I think is best for them.
Okay.
You know,
All
when
right. So what's that? So what happens now? You find a practice and you buy it or what?
Yeah, so I interestingly enough, my wife had this idea of like, hey, well, a good friend of mine said, hey, why don't you come out to Montana and check it out here? It's like, I don't know, it's a little further away, but like, sure, I'll give it a try. So we looked up dentists in the area. Somehow, my wife found out the age of dentists and tried
Right?
to find like people that were in retirement age.
Uh-huh.
And so we wrote them letters and just asking, hey, if this is something that you're interested in, I'm looking to purchase a practice. And
Right.
some people reached out, but very few. I actually looked in Missoula and Bozeman were the two areas that I looked. In Missoula, I think there was one doctor out of like, I don't know, 15 or 20 that was warm and welcoming.
Yep.
Nobody else said, hey, we don't need any more dentists.
About
And so I
right.
was like,
Yep.
okay. In Bozeman, there was two doctors that were opening and wanted to talk. So I drove out there and spoke to one, and he said, "Well, I have somebody looking at the practice right now. I'll let you know if things fall through." But showed me around, let me know what he was doing, and then the other individual went to his practice and showed me around, let me see everything, took me out to lunch, and says, "Well, I think maybe in a couple years." I'll be ready, but not quite right now. I said, okay, maybe I'll just do community health for a couple more years and then go out. And then a month later, he called me back and said, I'm ready to sell. I said, okay.
So it went from a couple years to a month.
Yeah, he said, I think he had a doctor's appointment and found there was something going on with his back or something. It's like if he kept doing this, it would just get worse. So, yeah, he
Okay.
decided he would retire.
So he's sort of, would you say physically forced to retire?
I think that was part of it. Yeah.
So what's that look like? Do you want to talk about what you bought or do you want to talk about?
Yeah, so I looked specifically also for fee for service practices. I
Okay.
didn't want to deal with insurance, to be honest, and there's some reasons for that we can get into for sure. Um, but he was fee for service. I love that, and he had 5 operatories with 2 that were still not built out. So it's got like 3,000-ish square feet,
That's a nice size office,
and
3,000 square feet. Yep. Okay.
yeah, and not all quite digital. There's still like paper charts and things in there, and
Uh-huh.
I'm very digitally minded person, so I knew that there'd be some changes. Um, so we had somebody come in and figure out the price and everything and got it solidified. Um, Now during that time, we were living in Washington. The people we were renting from sold their house and told us we had 30 days to get out. So
Oh,
I ended up renting this, I kid you not, like 10 by 20 shack right next to that single wide clinic I was working out of. And then my wife and kids all went back to my parents in Moses Lake and lived with them during that time. And it took him,
how many
was
kids
it,
do you have at that point? You have seven?
how many did we have at that point? Ava was there, so we had six, I think, and one on the way.
Uh-huh.
There's always one on the way.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, when you have 10 over 20 years, sure. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, there's another one on the way.
Yep. All
But
right. So,
yeah, so we're kind of like split. We're like 2 hours away from each other, and I'm trying to like finish working at where I'm working, and then this practice, I'm waiting for him to like get everything solidified, and it took like 9 months to close the deal, which was kind of painful to be honest, because now
sure it
I'm living
is.
in a shack for 9 months before we can close this deal. And I think he just wanted for tax purposes to wait that long. I don't know.
Was there anything in the deal that you would right now looking back say, wow, this is some mistake that I made?
Um, no, no, I think everything was pretty good. There was one thing where the bank last minute, because he wanted to do like airway and sleep apnea devices and wanted to work with different dentists in the area. And then the bank was like, oh, no, 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 no. He's got to work out of your practice. That's
Right.
too risky. I'm like, I'm not doing airway. Like it's like not what I'm trying to do. So I don't think it's going to affect me. And anyways, that was a problem because he would come in, it would create confusion amongst the team.
Right.
They're like, am I supposed to assist him? And he's using like all our gloves now that I just bought from him and all the, disposables, and we're not really sure when he's coming in. It's just all of a sudden he's got a patient in the schedule and his wife is still working up front. And so there was a lot of confusion. So after I think about, I don't know, a month or so, we said, let's annul this. Let's go back to the original contract and you can go and do it whatever you want, where you want. And so we just modified that afterwards
Uh-huh.
because they wouldn't give me the loan unless we did that. So that
Got
was
you.
the only thing that kind of was sour.
Okay.
Um, but
So,
yeah, no, it
so
worked
was
out
it
pretty well.
like what you purchased? Was it enough for you to operate, to own, to earn a living and pay your debts?
Yeah, so I think he was, anywhere in the mid 600s to high, would probably be 700
Right.
um, for him in production. Uh, but because he kind of had that time, he did a lot of dentistry and had his highest year at the
Uh-huh.
very end. So when I took over, there was less to do, and there was some other challenges. I know that they had some issues because her they both had parents that passed away right around the time that I was taking over, and so they weren't keeping up with the AR, and so AR wasn't coming in. They hadn't sent out my W-9s to any insurance companies, so it was kind of a mess when I first got on. His wife was only there for like that first month, and I had a complete staff changeover within 6 months.
Hmm.
I'm talking
Well, you also have to
everything.
learn the business because I'm sure at the community center and the other place,
Yeah.
you didn't learn any of the business traits, which
No,
is,
no, no. I didn't. Thankfully, my brother and my dad had
yeah.
owned businesses, and so
Yep.
that's where I got my business knowledge from. I've read a lot of Patrick Lencioni books, which has really helped guide with culture, and so that's been some of my main helps. But I can always talk to my dad or my brother, and they've helped me out a lot and shared some good books with me. And yeah, throughout time, experience is probably one of the best teachers out there.
Right, but you got like you're talking about accounts receivable. Now, in
Yep.
your deal, was the accounts receivable was part of your purchase? Like you own the accounts
Yes.
receivable? Yeah,
Yes. Yes.
probably a good move. Hopefully, you didn't pay a lot for it, but probably a good move.
No, I think we ended up probably breaking even.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Okay. All right. So you got this practice, and
Hmm.
and then your family. I hope I'm thinking your family's going to move out now, and you're going to have a place for everybody to be together again. But what does the practice look like at 6 months or a year? And when do you start to really put your stamp on it and your fingerprint on it?
Yeah. So, like I said, 6 months out, we had a complete
Right.
changeover in
Yep.
staff. And I'm trying to think if it was at that point or if it was in a year where I really wanted to rebrand everything. I wanted to disassociate myself from the previous brand and really have my own. Because I knew it would be a different culture. I thought it would be similar, but the longer I stayed there and talked to patients, I knew that things would be different. So we actually had a patient that does marketing and branding that reached out to us and sat down with them, and they've actually done a lot of things for bigger companies and do excellent work. So we sat down with them. It was nice because we knew what our culture was. That had been something that I really focused on. So that
Hmm.
was the easy part of the branding. It was more finding out the name and the logo and some of the minor details. So we went ahead and got that all figured out. Uh, yeah, and just God, I would say it was just over time figuring out, what we wanted in employees and team members to figure out how to make it more successful over time.
Were you making money from the beginning?
Um, the first 3 months,
Yeah. You're
I
just
thought
writing
I was
checks.
gonna go out of business.
Yeah. Yeah. I had the
Yeah,
same feeling because my purchase was October 1, and by the end of the year, I was like, man, I'm just writing checks. And
yeah,
my deal was I was collecting the accounts receivable for the former dentist,
yeah,
and so that was what was kind of coming in because of his payment policies.
yep.
So I was like, oh, do I have enough money for lunch this week? Like, you
Oh
weren't
yeah,
sure. So people, and that's when you're on your own, when there's the safety net's gone, right?
oh
So
yeah. It was.
so
I
talk
was
about how,
super.
so okay, so right, you're worried about going out of business. At what point do you finally feel like, okay, I got this. Now I gotta now I gotta make it my own. At what point was that the debt turn? 4 months, 6 months? What point?
Um. Oh, great question. It was probably 6 months down the road when things started turning around because they hadn't switched my name and AR hadn't been done. So at some point, my wife, who didn't really want to be in the practice,
Right.
comes in and now she's taking charge, right? But she's taking charge while, I just had a baby. Um, things are tough. Golly sakes, I don't even know if she was expecting again at that point. It sounds ridiculous, but um, I think she might have been expecting again. Uh, oh yes, this was insane. So in September we had baby number 7, and then when we moved, she said, "Guess what? I'm pregnant." I'm like, "Oh my gosh." Like, I don't know what's wrong with me. Yeah. So we moved and found out that we were expecting again. We're like, this is just crazy. And so
Sure.
she's in the practice, she's expecting again, and she's trying to manage the practice, the
Yeah.
AR and all these things.
You're not near
Get
family.
the Yeah. And we had actually this front office gal that was absolutely phenomenal. I wouldn't say she was like the fastest at things, but you could trust her with your life. And then she worked as hard as she could, but it got kind of stressful for her. And so like I think she lasted about a year and said, "Hey, this is just too much for me." But she was absolutely wonderful in helping make sure things were working and did the best she could to help us get things going. And once checks started coming in, about I don't know, I was think 4 months into the practice, we had working capital to try and keep us afloat, but about 4 months into the practice, we were starting to get checks. And then 6 months, it was like kind of now we have a steady flow. I've worked through my working capital, and now we're staying even. It's not dropping. It's
Uh-huh.
maintaining at that point. So I'm like, okay, I can maintain, and then we'll just grow, and we can at least maintain things. So
But now
that's
remember, right? You were still 250 from your student loans. You probably
yeah.
borrowed to buy the practice, another
Oh, yeah.
three,
Yeah,
four, whatever it
the
was, you know.
practice was, what was it, like 570 something, and I took
So you're
in
you're pretty
capital.
close to just under $1 million, just shy of $1 million in debt.
Yeah.
Seven kids, eighth one on the way, away from home. I mean, I mean, a lot of, I will say weaker people would have been just packed it in, right? That's a lot
Yeah. Yeah.
because it doesn't start out all peaches and roses as you're describing, right? So
No.
we'll just talk about like the 1 year mark.
Yeah.
So now you're starting to see you're paying your bills, right? And then there's a little
Hmm.
bit left over. So you're like, okay, we're gonna swim here. We're gonna make this ship's gonna float. What did you really put in place in your practice? You talk a lot about culture, and that was your primary focus initially. What were some of the other things that you focused on doing?
Um, I'm big into education, so I want to know what I'm doing. I want to make sure I'm being smart with what I'm doing. So education is important for me. Uh, but I would say that first year, it was just learning to swim.
Uh-huh.
Honestly, it was just learning what I needed to do to run a business. That's all I was trying to do at that point. I mean, just trying to hire people,
Right?
uh, like
HR.
yeah, yeah. Trying to put together a handbook, because I looked at the previous one and there was some things in there that was definitely not
Yeah.
part of the
Everything but the
law.
dentistry. Everything but the dentistry. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. There's definitely some things from the previous handbook that like were not okay. So we had to change the handbook. Um, I was my own hygienist during that first summer, and we did find a hygienist that was absolutely phenomenal. She was with us, I think, for like 3 years, till her and her husband had to move. But she was great. She grabbed onto our culture and just loved it. We hired a great assistant. Um,
Hmm.
we had some other assistants along the way, kind of came and gone. Most of them weren't educated in dental assisting, and so you just kind of like hire who you can and try and train them. And then same with up front, similar things. Um, but that first year mark, we joined with a group called TOPS, Total Patient Services. Um, and that was great because they really emphasized more on our culture, but they also gave us like scripts and things to do and say and really figure out like, hey, what you want to do to be successful is find out what the patient wants, and then you can focus on that. If patients are coming in, but if you don't know what they want, then and if you don't have a goal to work towards, then they're not going to be as motivated to get things done. So we really focused on that. Had a coach there for that first year. Uh, I'm trying to think if it was that second year. That's when like COVID hit.
What did overhead look like when you bought the practice? Was it 50%, 60%?
That's a great question. I think it was pretty low because he was quite frugal.
Uh-huh.
I found a lot of expired materials when I bought the
Sure you
practice.
did.
So I was
That's
throwing a
because you
lot
were
of
looking.
stuff out, and there was a little bit of a increased cost in the beginning just to replace some things. Um,
Were you able to maintain that or that level, or I'm sure your expenses have gone up a bit though.
I was definitely trying to be as frugal as possible, work with the reps from like Patterson or Henry Schein, and really try and work with them, and they were phenomenal. I'd have some of the reps come in from like Dent Supply and be like, here, just take this, just take this. They saw who I was, and they were just so kind and so
Uh-huh.
sweet. So big shout out to them for just helping me out during those difficult times. Um,
Yeah, so
but
you're
yeah,
just getting your feet going,
yeah,
and then comes
just
COVID. Yeah,
yeah, then COVID comes and we're like, you got to be kidding me.
right?
Yeah, we were just we have a spring break that we take, and we take a week off, and that's when they told everybody to shut down.
Right.
And so I'm
Yeah,
like,
like March
no
20.
big deal. We're not even in for this week. No big deal. And then it lasted for like 6 weeks, and I'm like, this is stupid.
Yeah.
This is terrible. Uh, but but yeah, so I think we ended up applying for the PPP loan at one point, but
Yeah.
not until like after we started back up to help with payroll,
Yeah.
things like that. And
Took
we
took
did
some
lose
navigating. Took some
we did
navigating.
lose our front office gal because she worked in dental, and she actually continued to work on AR while we were shut down so that we still had some money coming in.
Uh-huh.
And then but she had some friends over in another state that were getting paid with this PPP loan and not working and wondering why we weren't doing that. And I'm like, I don't think that that's what it was for and used for, is for payroll and stuff. And so she got a bit miffed, and we were hiring another person, and she just, anyways, she left like right after we got
Hmm.
started back up again. And so this other person didn't get a whole lot of time to train with her. And uh, anyways, going through the motions of like hiring a new person up front every time has been a challenge. But we have a gal, Hallie, who's been with us. It'll be 3 years this year, and she's been phenomenal. She we actually hired her before she graduated with her bachelor's in business management and finance. And boy, she's been a firecracker. Her dad owns an auto body place over in Great Falls, pretty big place, and she knew that she wanted to, she wants to own her own business someday. But this is kind of a stepping stone for her, and she's fantastic. She has hammered the AR like nobody's business. So
Hmm.
we're like on top of our game with that. I don't have to wait very long for checks to come in. So like our collections and production are very, very close at this point now.
Have you changed your policies with the fee for service model, or are you pretty much just like out of network?
Yeah, we're just out of network. We've always been that way. I always wanted to be that way. I knew number one, dealing with insurance is just a pain. Even when you are fee for service, it's a pain. They don't want to communicate with you
Hmm.
because you're not one of their PPO providers. And then I wanted to have the ability to treat my patients without having like contingencies, because they want to change what you're doing. Oh, an amalgam is cheaper, so we're going to change your fee. I'm like, isn't that fraud? You're changing what I'm doing. I think that's fraud. Um, and then I wanted to make sure that I had the time to build the relationships with my patients, because if just from what I've seen and dealing with community health, it was all about volume when you're taking on insurances. And
Sure
so
it
I
was.
I didn't want to deal with that. I'm like, I value the relationship with my patients, and I feel like they also value that. That's what's important to them. So we really focus on that, and I don't feel like you can as well when you're having to take on so many things just to keep up. It's just, I don't know how people do it, honestly.
So with all this, um, your collection policy is You're going to submit to insurance if the check comes to you, and then do you collect up front the copay? How do you handle the payments with patients?
Yeah, so we try and estimate what their
Yep.
insurance is going to cover. We actually have them pay for that before we do the procedure.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like a down payment, if you will, to secure their spot on the schedule. And then whatever comes back, now if insurance pays them, then we just collect 100%.
Uh-huh.
And usually people know, and sometimes you got to look that up. But other than that, we usually have a card on file, and we're like, hey, listen, if it comes back where we owe you, we'll refund it right on the card, or we'll write you a check, or you can keep it for the next thing, whatever you want to do. Most people are fine with that. You get a few that I can't believe you're doing this kind of thing. What, they think you're greedy, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there is some of that, but very few. Most people understand, and the way we try and explain it for some people is like, hey, we can do like what's called a layaway plan for you. You pay a couple payments towards things. That way we know that we're not putting the stress on you to get it all in one lump sum. But if you need to make payments, that's okay. But then when you come in, you don't have to worry about anything. We're now doing the procedure. You're worry free, and people tend to appreciate that because
Yeah,
when
you
you
get in
when you're
trouble when the
done with
insurance doesn't pay what they expect they're supposed to pay.
yeah, and when you're done with the procedure, you go up front and you don't have to pay anything at that point, and you're just sailing out the door. That's a great feeling. You're like, yeah, I already covered this. I'm done. I'm good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So yeah, it's what's worked for us.
What
We do
about
have
bigger
a
cases?
membership
What are you
plan.
doing for bigger cases?
What do I do for bigger cases? Um, Typically, care credit is a big one. Or so I found that care credit. We also use a company called Cherry, which is more like just a loan. And then people will get families members to help them. We don't request that they get their family members to help them, but I think they've spoken with family members over time, and usually that's all the teeth need to go or something like that. So they're kind of
Uh-huh.
working. It's like a denture or something. So they have they've realized that there's going to be something and there's going to be a decent amount of money, but we let them know, hey, you can do care credit. Like our office is usually going to, like, if you want us to carry it, it's going to be like 2 or 3 payments, right? But you have to have it paid up by the time we do the procedure. So, and in some cases I've had some people try and wheel and deal with me, and you do what you can to help people out. So
Mm-hmm.
sometimes you'll be like, okay, if we can meet at this point, then yeah, great, sure, I'm good with that. Maybe it's a little bit more of a, like, maybe we'll do a cash discount, like 5% off or something like that. People love our membership for big procedures because it's a continuous like 15% off of whatever we're doing. And if they use that for something like an all on four, they're going to get way more off than something that insurance would cover. So
Uh-huh.
people love using the membership program for that.
When did you start your membership plan?
Right away, right away. We well, I can't say not right when we started, but like maybe 6 months into things when we were rebranding.
So what
We
does it look like? What does your plan look like?
Oh man, it's changed. It's changed so many times. So the first one was kind of like a big lump fee, and it would cover all preventative. It 15% off, I think, of things, and that was just like a big lump sum. And we kind of like changed the price depending on what our prices were. And then we were like, this is kind of hard for people to pay that amount. So why don't we just do, like, here's a fee, like a gym fee or something like that, of like $79 for the year, and then here's just a percentage off of everything. So we tried that, and then this year we're doing monthly payment program. So it's, if they wanted to pay it all up front, yeah, it's going to be kind of a big lump fee, but then typically it's just the monthly payment, and they get like 15% off and all different things covered. and then they can do add-ons if they want.
Okay, so are you doing like an automatic credit card payment for the
Mhm.
thing, or like a automatic deposit, direct deposit?
Yeah, so it's just a credit card that's saved on file, and they it's just automatic each month. It just goes through. Yeah, we're working with I think it's Dental Menu
Uh-huh.
to do
I
that.
got to believe your dad and your brother's business has to have a lot of that, because in that restoration, right? You might be like hit it, quit it, be done, right? Clean
Yeah,
it.
you know, that's when I knew insurance companies were not in your favor, is when I
Right.
worked for my dad.
You got to see that.
Yeah,
Got to see
yeah,
that. I
especially
had to deal
when
with that on a home
yeah,
that we have, and I was like, holy cow, this is a scam.
yeah, yeah. They would, and you know, the tough thing was is the insurance company would finally send a check and they'd send it to the homeowner, but then they wouldn't send that to my dad. They're like, no, you got to sign it and give it to me. Like I did the work.
Right.
And some people would go out and buy a new TV.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's
Okay, we're
crazy.
gonna kind of wrap up fairly soon. Any other tips, successful or unsuccessful, that you have that you want to share?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, this last year was a big growth year for us. We did a lot this last year. I think we hit 1.6 this last year. Before that, I was always just trying to reach like a million kind of thing. And the year before, I think I was close. I might have actually done like 1.2. But I was like, you know, we gotta up our game. I had a huge mental change on things. I said I got to really change the way I think about things. Um,
Well,
and
you're talking
so
about a 50 or 60% growth in a year. So,
yeah, yeah. So I added an associate
uh-huh.
about midway through the year. And it was funny because I had apparently told myself that after 5 years I was going to add an associate, but I didn't feel ready, and I didn't even remember that I set that goal. Um, but I had a mindset shift, and you know I started reading Robert Kiyosaki, Rich
Yeah.
Dad Poor Dad. I'm like, you know, I got to think differently, and so started thinking in a different way, changing my mindset. And I was like, we need to have an associate on board. I want more time for myself and my family because, like, everything is depending on me in the practice. So, if I can change that, then that's going to be much better. So, that's where things started to shift and change. And so, I, we met a young man that had reached out to me before, and he actually happened to be in the area. We met with him, and right after we met with him, my wife and Hallie, our office manager, were like, we have to hire him. I'm like, really? That fast, huh? And so that's what we started on, and because we knew that he would fit our culture really, really well. And that's kind of a tough thing to do, is find a provider that's going to fit your culture, right? Because they're not as in great quantity, I would say, as like
Mhm.
maybe some of your other team members. So we started working on that. We started partnering up with Energize to do some marketing. I said, whoever I hire next, I need to make sure that we are really ramped up uh, to make sure they're busy. And I thought about it like, hey, I can basically start a startup practice within my practice to get this guy going. Like I don't have to have like so much that like I'm blowing out the seams. Like you just, I mean, what do startups do? Right. So you just market and you get people in the door. So that's what we decided to do. And that's what we've been doing. We've been working with Energize to get that done. We do a lot of consultations. That's kind of how we advertise with Energize. Is you do some consultations, get people in the door, and you can get some really big cases that way. We've done a lot of veneer cases, denture cases, just crowns right on the spot. So we've done things like that to get people in the door. And then I've been working with Matt Kennedy at Dental Impact, who's also really big on your mindset and how to get more providers in the practice, how to get expanded times in the practice. So now I have goals of having a much larger practice with, I don't know, like 8 or 10 dentists in it. So that's kind of my goal in the future here.
So what does your physical place look like? You said that there was a five office, five op, right? There was three,
Yeah.
two plumb, three ready. What have you done with your physical place?
Put in all new chairs except for one operatory, built out the other two. So now we have seven. Um, we
Oh, I'm
did have
sorry. So
three
you had
hygienists.
five and you had two
Yeah.
more that you had. Okay. I thought you only had three out of the five set up. Okay.
Yeah. So we had five set up, and all 8X chairs from 1980. But we replaced them because when things were going wrong with them, we couldn't get parts anymore. So we just decided, hey, let's replace them. Kind of did it more on a budget. We used DCI. They're
Yeah.
great chairs,
Great chairs.
uh,
Number one selling
working
chair in the
well.
country.
And so we replaced all our chairs except for one unit, which had a newer chair. Put in cabinets. Um, got another Prime scanner or Prime Connect. So now we have two scanners in the office. We do CEREC. We just got the Prime Print. Um, so there's a lot of technology. I use lasers and we got a microscope. So like all these things are in the practice to help make treatments better. And yeah, really just focusing on growth at this point. And yeah, this last month we finished, I think, our highest month yet, and it was over 200,000 for this last month. So we were pretty excited to see the growth.
Well, you're gonna blow out 1.6. You're gonna be
Yeah.
pushing two plus.
Yeah,
Right.
we're hoping 2.4 this year. That's kind of the goal. So
Well,
um
1.6 to 2.4 again, that's another 50% growth.
yeah, I have lofty goals. We're actually gonna be starting a dental assisting school within the practice. It's gonna have a 10-week program. Um, but we're trying to get the accreditation process rolling through.
Good luck.
And,
Good luck.
yeah,
We've talked about it in our practice forever, and New York State is not an easy.
partner with MCP. It's Medical Curriculum Partners. They do
Uh-huh.
this all over the country, and they basically set everything up for you, and they take care of the curriculum.
There you go. I get
Yeah.
nuggets all the time. Great.
Figure
All right.
why not just have your own staff come in, right? Just create your own. If I
Right.
could do a hygiene school, I would.
Yeah, that's another story. That's another conversation.
Yes, it is.
All right. Well, fantastic. So we are going to have you back on in, well, 6 months or so and get some updates.
Now we might have another provider by then.
Yeah, well, that's the way you're going. You're going to need it.
Yep. Yep. I'm hoping so.
All right. You said your priority was you were going to spend a little more time balancing your work life, right?
Yep.
Practice is going in that direction. Your associate is going to hit a certain point, you're going to need, because you're going to want them to have a little balance too in their life.
Yeah.
And,
Absolutely.
because that
Absolutely.
fits your culture. You said it a million times, and I totally agree with it. And, you know, that'll work. Just,
Yeah.
sounds like you're a big planner. So good for you.
Yeah.
You
Thank
know,
you. Thank you. Yeah.
congrats. All right. Last question I'm going to ask you. I'm glad you haven't listened a lot to the podcast because you haven't heard this question yet. Everybody on the first time I asked this question, I said, if you could go back in time to any time or place with anyone or any person or anything, like where would you go?
Oh, wow. That's a great question. Oh, boy, I haven't even thought of anything like that, to be honest. Anytime, any place.
Yeah,
Oh, I would, what would be interesting is just to see my family's upbringings. Um, like my grandma, back when she grew up, they lived in a dirt cave. And just to see like those humble beginnings
that's
and to
humble
see what they
beginnings.
grew up,
Dirt
we're,
cave.
we're talking cowboy and Indian stuff here, and to live in a dirt cave, and maybe it was her mom that did that, but just to go back and see what they they started out with. My family, both my grandma and grandpa's side, came from very, very humble beginnings, and just to see how they lived and how they worked. And yeah, my grandma, I would say, is one of my heroes. So she just passed away this last year, but um, she lived to be 94. But she's a wonderful woman. Definitely, she was the matriarch of our family. Uh, yeah, just absolutely wonderful person. So to go back and see what she dealt with, and the trials and struggles she dealt with, and kind of gain perspective of my life isn't so bad.
Great stuff. Well,
There you go.
appreciate it. So if they want to reach you, they can reach you. It's Shine Dental is the name of your business.
Yeah, yeah.
What's your website?
Shine Dental, and then MT, like Montana.com.
So Shine Dental at MT? Or no,
No, just
should be
ShineDentalMT.com.
ShineDentalMT.com
Yeah.
is the website. Okay.
My email is just DR, like doctor, and then my last name, Justesen, Justesen @gmail.
Okay, you'll probably get a couple things. I think very helpful to everyone listening and watching now because we're on YouTube. We just finally got the video components up and running. So
Excellent.
I really appreciate it, man. I'm super stoked for you. I'm glad your wife made sure that you would be a good candidate and said, hey, give him a call. So
I gotta say, she's probably more of the brains behind most things here. She just doesn't like the camera.
yeah, but if anything, you know what? The bottom line is if you listen to back to what you said, the key points to me were I spoke to my wife about this.
Yep.
Are we in this together? And when you have that team, then you'll create a stronger team, but you'll move forward with utter confidence when you know you got that partner in life. To me,
Yep.
I can't give my wife enough credit either, because
Yeah. Yeah.
there's a rocky ride ahead. It's not all smooth sunshine and rainbows, and it's
Yeah.
nice to know, right, that you have
You have
that
that support. Yeah.
co-pilot, so to speak, right?
Yep.
So
Yep.
it's awesome. All right, my friend. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sonny. I appreciate your time.
Appreciate it.
Thanks for listening to the Fee for Service Dentist Podcast. If you would like to share your fee for service story, please fill out our contact form at ffsdentistry.com. Also, be sure to join our Fee for Service Dentistry Facebook group. For help starting your dental membership plan, visit dentalmembershipdirect.com and membershipmastercourse.com. Finally, for help with in-house financing, visit dentalfinancingdirect.com. And don't forget, your story is what you make of it. This is your name on the door and your reputation on the line. Thanks, everyone. We'll see you next time.
This has been a Rogue Media Network